A lot of you know this, but I recently took up the multi-year task of watching every video game adaptation ever made. So every movie based on a video game, I will be watching to find definitively the best one and the worst one, ranking them from worst to best. I've watched in total 6 now, but I've only made 2 videos on them, one for Silent Hill 2006 and one for Silent Hill Revelations. But I've watched 4 others, I just haven't made any content on them. And that's because they're more modern movies, which means the copyright on them is a little stricter. So like when I did Silent Hill Revelations, that got flagged pretty hard. Immediately YouTube came in with the fucking whistle, the hall monitor badge, and slapped the old copyright claim and block handcuffs on the video. So for these 4, I don't think I could make big videos on each of them, so instead, I'm just going to yap about them right here to your face. So spread your lats, get ready, I'm coming in hot. So the first 3 I did in a batch because I was just going to make one video for this entire series of live-action video game adaptations. It's the Tomb Raider series. I didn't want to break these up into individual videos. I thought it'd be better just to do them all in like a batch. So let's start with 2001 Angelina Jolie fronted Tomb Raider. This movie I actually have pretty fond memories of because I actually watched this after coming back from the hospital and having an eye patch on my eye because my friend's dog bit my eyeball. So I spent the day at the hospital, they were tending to my wound, they were performing voodoo magic and dropping, sacred Phoenix Down eye drops in there to fix it all up. And when I got sent home with an eye patch on, my dad threw on Tomb Raider and he said, "We're gonna watch this tonight." To date, probably still the only time my father has ever willingly watched a video game adaptation, or anything even loosely based on a video game. I think it was just that early 2000s Angelina Jolie hype train. So, this film is somewhat sentimental to me. And going back and watching it, I can confidently say, it's fine. Like, it's a fun movie. It doesn't do anything super special. It's very much a product of its time, which I actually think is a really charming aspect of it. Everything about this film wants to be extreme. So, like, the very first scene, she's, like, hanging upside down and then fights a robot. And actually, the robot looks pretty good. Like, this film does have some very bad CGI moments. I mean, it's 2001, of course, it's going to have some fucking wonkiness. But for the most part, I actually think this looks better than most of the old DCU movies from a few years back, like with The Flash and all of that shit. This film looks pretty solid overall, and it's really fun. She's using video game moves during her robot fight, so she's doing like backflips and shit. She's dual wielding and doing all kinds of like gun fu on it. It's like really well choreographed. And it of course tries to suckle from the teat of The Matrix because, I mean, it's the early 2000s. So it has like her dodging bullets and stuff and doing those kind of maneuvers, which really fits in line with the Lara Croft character overall, to be honest. I really think the action in this was a slapper. I thought it was such a good thrill ride. Now the story, it's nothing amazing. I was surprised to see Daniel Craig here. But the story, I wrote it down. Basically, the bad guys have a chance at getting a triangle key, or they'll have to wait 5,000 years because of planetary alignment cucking them. And Okay, I went out of order because I jumped from like my plot synopsis to Angelina Jolie wore tit enhancers. So, I'm jumping around a little bit. Yeah, Angelina Jolie has like a quadruple D cup here that is extremely perky. And I looked it up. She wore booby boosters. She had breast augments, like big padding, in order to more closely resemble the Lara Croft diamond titties, like the pointed polygon titties. So that's worth mentioning. I thought that was kind of wacky that they did that. But anyway, the plot, they need to get this triangle key. It's the Illuminati. The organization is the Illuminati. They need to get this key in this very strict time frame so that way they can get the artifact that will allow them to control time itself. So they have like a time manipulator doohickey doodad that they're trying to get their greasy little Illuminati paws on. And eventually Lara Croft meets the bad guy, and he's fundamentally just a Redditor. He's like a prototype Redditor. All of his lines are so cringy. Like, one of his lines is, "Your ignorance amuses me. What a pleasurable torment this shall be," and stuff like that. There's also a side booby scene with Angelina Jolie, which I vividly remember being like a big like wow moment back in the early 2000s. So that was cool, I guess. But yeah, basically, She is trying to stop them from getting the Triangle of Light and controlling time because you don't want that power in the bad guy's hands. So she is now trying to get the Triangle of Light herself. And it is a lot of action. There's like a bungee cord fight in her mansion, which is a really cool mansion, by the way, and the bungee cord fight is really cool. Again, I think the action super slaps. Daniel Craig, like I mentioned, is here, and he's like a pseudo love interest of Angelina Jolie, but he's working for the bad guys, and he's also kind of cringe. He is very on the nose with his exposition, so he reveals like the big twist that he's been contracted with the Illuminati to get the Triangle of Light, and he says, Laura's in it for the glory. I'm in it for the money. So that's his whole character trait. Money, 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 money. He's Mr. Krabs. It's not deep. This film doesn't even really try to give you a compelling narrative, and that's by far like the worst element of it. It's fun. Like, it's a fun adventure. They go a lot of different places. She solves little puzzles and riddles, all of which are kind of cool, but there's no emotional weight to it. So Daniel Craig, his name is Alex. At the end of the film, they're all standing off, trying to get their hands on the Triangle of Light. And in order to try and force Laura to give over the Triangle of Light, the bad guy throws a knife and kills Alex. And thus, it prompts Laura to get the Triangle of Light to reset time so that way she can save Alex. But you don't really care because the relationship between these two fucking sucks. That shit is flatter than my ass, and I have Hank Hill ass. So, by far the worst part of the film is like its story. It doesn't really do much to make any chemistry between the characters, but overall, I really did enjoy watching it. It is a fun early 2000s action flick. Now, moving on to the next Lara Croft Tomb Raider film. This one's Cradle of Life. This one has Gerard Butler. I didn't remember him being in this film either, but this one I think is definitely a step backwards. I think this one is just worse in every possible department. The action's not nearly as flashy or as cool, but I don't think it is a bad movie. It's just definitely worse in comparison to the first one. So, like, in the very beginning, there's a CGI rock avalanche at a wedding, and it looks like shit. It somehow looks worse than the first movie. I'm guessing what happened is, for the second film, they thought maybe they could, cheap out on the visual effects and maybe just focus more on star power with having Gerard Butler here and, Angelina Jolie. But it doesn't, I don't know, like, there's no chemistry between them either. I guess there's a little more between them than her and Alex from the previous film, who is completely forgotten, by the way. I don't think they even mentioned his name once here. It's like he never even existed. They fucking vanished after the Triangle of Light brought him back to life. But yeah, as more and more memories of it are coming back to me, I watched this like 2 weeks ago. I wrote everything down, but as I'm remembering more of it, it is actually significantly worse than the 2001 Tomb Raider film. Like, there's this CGI shark where she's like swimming to get like this golden ball, and there's like this CGI shark actually looks like something out of an indie game from Steam. I don't know what happened in the visuals department. I think that maybe they went on strike or something. They said, fuck it, I'll have my son finish it. He's used Blender once. I don't know what went wrong, but yeah, it looks much worse. Also, the story is a lot worse. There is still like a grand sense of adventure that I can appreciate, but it doesn't really have as many like intricate puzzles or anything to solve. It's all a lot more like streamlined and on rails. So it loses that sense of scale that the first one kind of had. And I also hate the villain in this one even more than the last one. He's even more cringe. So this guy is like a world-renowned super genius turbo megamind galaxy intellect, but he uses his mind for evil. He turns to a life of crime where he becomes a bioweapons trader. And he likes to release poison weapons to the world just to watch it all burn. So he's giving like this speech about how he just likes to see the effects of his bioweapons, his virus. It's like some shit out of Umbrella Corps, really. So he's giving this speech and he's talking about how he released enhanced Ebola, like super Ebola, and wants to sell it for $100 million to some bad guys. But he doesn't even really care about the money. He more so just likes people using his super Ebola and all of his other, engineered viruses just to kill people for the sake of it. But he believes that there is an even more potent bioweapon out there that he wants to get his greasy paws on. Pandora's box. That's the main item that must be retrieved by Lara because she doesn't want that falling into his hands. So MI6 gives her a huge exposition vomit sesh. They diarrhea out tons of info on the bad guy. I didn't write his name down, so I don't even remember the bad guy's name. But he really is that forgettable. He's kind of just a fucking loser. But he wants to use Pandora's box to kill the whole world, because Pandora's box in this film is a plague. That is what is in the box, and he wants to unleash it to destroy the planet. That is his entire mission, his whole goal. And Gerard Butler enters into the fold. His name is Terry, because Laura needs to team up with Terry because he's the best tracker she knows. He's like the most equipped for this mission. But he's in jail. He gets a deal from Laura to get him out of jail as long as he teams up with Laura, and the two then go try and get Pandora's box to stop the bad guy from having it. They drop out of the battle bus into China, and they find this underground group, the same group that she fought after the CGI sharks when she was getting the golden snitch. They confront the group. They're called the Sheiling, and Lara Croft kills one of the guys, and then they drive motorcycles on the Great Wall of China. And then after they escape the Sheiling, after causing a ruckus, Gerard Butler, Terry, reveals how he's still really salty that their relationship didn't go anywhere. These two were once romantic. Almost in love, you could say. But then things went cattywampus, and he's not happy. And Laura, she does not trust Terry. Yep. I did a really bad job at writing down the plot synopsis here. It's all over the place. But yeah, I wrote this down, and it's true. Terry's basically the exact same character as Daniel Craig. Like, personality-wise, he fills the same role. Literally like a one-to-one carbon copy of Alex. I have to imagine Daniel Craig just had other obligations, so he couldn't be part of this film. So they're like, all right, we'll just write a new guy and forget about Alex. Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. But anyway, the reason their relationship crumbled is because he left her and abandoned his country, but he regrets it. Anyway, though, I don't know why I'm getting, even deep into this, because it doesn't matter. It's not fleshed out. It doesn't feel natural. There's no real chemistry between them. Again, it's very stale. Ultimately, the big part of this film, the action, is still intact and still fun. Like, the gunfights feel very much out of a Tomb Raider game from the PlayStation. The choreography is still pretty hype. It just looks worse than the first one. It does take a step back in its visuals, but I do appreciate that the action is still flashy and it is still fun. What ultimately happens, though, is they get to Pandora's box. They fight some shadow guardians, which are like these tree demons. So they fight like these, almost like tree imps. They just kill the shadow bad guys, and they're forced by the main bad guy to lead him to Pandora's box. And then she fights the main bad guy who likes bioweapons, and she throws him into a pit of acid that Pandora's box is sitting in. So he starts just melting and dying next to Pandora's box. And then Terry and Laura are face-to-face with the box. Laura obviously wants to leave the box, believing that this plague is too powerful for any one man to have. Terry, on the other hand, wants the box because he wants to sell it for money. He wants money. Remind you of anyone from the first film? So he says, I need this because I want to sell it. And, that's not going to fly. So she refuses to let him, and so he slaps her and gets ready to shoot her, but then she beats him to it, shooting him. It's supposed to be emotional, but all movie these two are just not clicking, so who cares? Wasn't a hard choice is what I wrote down. It's very true. It wasn't a hard choice, and who cares? Overall, Cradle of Light, much worse than the first film, but still not a bad time. I actually find these Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies to be pretty charming. I still did enjoy watching them. They're decent films. They're nothing special, but I think they're, a good representation of early 2000s action flicks. Now we get to the final Tomb Raider movie, Tomb Raider 2018. I saw this film in theaters. I even did a moist meter on it. I didn't remember a single fucking scene of this movie until I recently rewatched it. Literally remembered nothing from it. It actually was pretty decent. I think it's not as fun as the early Angelina Jolie films, but it's really not bad. It is loosely adapting, loosely is not even accurate. It actually, in a lot of times, one-to-one adapts the Tomb Raider reboot game. It's not perfect, but it does make a very legitimate, passionate attempt to take the content from the game and translate it to the big screen. Of course, it takes some of its own creative liberties, but overall, it does a really decent job. Also, it's got my boy Walt Goggins in here, and I'm a big Goggins guy. I'm Goo for Goggins. I think he is a great actor, and he's really enjoyable in this film as the main villain. He is the best villain in any of the Tomb Raider movies, I would say, very confidently. He's like the only one with an actual motive. He is tasked, and he gets the short end of the stick here, with being stranded on an island until he can procure this ancient paranormal entity that they can use to basically take over the world. This new bad organization. Well, I mean, not exactly new bad organization, but the organization that is the puppet masters to him. He is not allowed to leave until he can find it, but it takes him years to find it. Many, many years. So he is just stuck there, unable to leave, and he just so desperately wants to see his family again. And he will do anything to get back to his family. So he has an actual real motive to be the bad guy. But of course he is very evil. He just kills people willy-nilly. So, I will say the beginning of this film is a really cool premise. It's again, you're going to recognize it. So, Himiko is an old ancient ruler who spread death with a touch but got imprisoned on an island by her generals, and Lara's dad has a map to it and leaves Lara behind to go unleash her. So her dad wanted to pursue Himiko, and this ancient organization also wants to pursue Himiko for much more nefarious purposes. You see, Lara's dad is doing this because he wants to find a way to bring his wife back. He wants proof that there is something beyond this realm, beyond our understanding of reality, so that maybe there is something that could bring his wife back, because she's gone. And he's very upset about that, naturally. So it's kind of like the polar opposite of Angelina Jolie's Lara Croft in this film. So the new Lara Croft here is very much in the beginning steps of her journey. So she gets her ass beat immediately. Like the first scene you see of this new Lara Croft, she loses a fight in the ring. And she's also much more quirky. Like, I really don't like the quirkification in this film. I think, again, this is just a symptom of the era that the movie was made, where everything needed to be quirky and quippy. So, like, when she loses the fight, one of her friends says that she got marmalized. Not a huge fan of dialogue like that. Anyway, Lara Croft is significantly weaker here than in any of the other movies. Again, she's just starting. She's learning. And she gets her ass beat. She's also extremely broke here, so she's living paycheck to paycheck as a carrier. And she's extremely broke, because she is refusing her inheritance, because by accepting the inheritance, she would have to admit that her father is dead. Because, like I said, her father went to look for Himiko. Well, he abandoned Lara by doing that and hasn't been seen since. So he is presumed dead. Thus, she is entitled to the inheritance, but she doesn't want to sign the papers because it would be admitting that her father is dead. So she chooses to live her life broke and in the shadows, and she eventually takes this deal to be a fox in a fox hunt, where she rides her bike, leaving behind a paint trail for hunters to follow, and if they catch her, she loses, but if she gets away, she wins 600 quid. She loses, and she gets arrested, and then her guardian comes to save her, letting her know, you have so much money, why are you doing this for 600 quid? And that's when we learn about all of the exposition with, like, you know, I don't want the money because then it would mean admitting Papa has perished on that island. Well, she goes to the mansion because she's finally starting to come to terms with maybe she should just sign those papers. Her life would be easier, it'd be better. And she's in the mansion, and she happens to stumble across a secret room, and there's a tape in there that her father recorded, and it actually has the classic trope where it says, if you're watching this, I'm already dead. And then he goes into detail about Himiko asking Lara to burn the research. Obviously, Lara doesn't burn the research. She uses it to go to the island to find her father. And then we get to see a familiar journey from the games play out on the big screen, and it's actually pretty decent. Like, the visuals in this film look pretty good. Like, they look solid. I mean, it's 2018, it's big budget. It's, of course, going to look pretty up to snuff for the era. But I was actually pretty surprised with just how good this movie looked at points. Like I said, I don't remember seeing it in theaters. I evidently did, based on the voice meter I made at the time. But this felt like a brand new experience, and it reminded me very much of playing the reboot game for the first time, which I did have a good time with. You see a lot of familiar set pieces, you see a lot of things play out similarly to the game, but it does have its own spin on things that I didn't love. So it does change certain things. But some of the things that it keeps one-to-one, I thought really hit. But anyway, she teams up with Captain Lou. They go to the island. Lou's dad was also on the island. They teamed up together. Laura's dad teamed up with Lou's dad. They got to the island. Lou's dad, unfortunately, was killed on the island. Laura's dad was still found alive, fucking crawling around on all fours, like an absolute feral creature. And he doesn't believe that's the real Laura there. But then, of course, realizes, no, that's actually his daughter. I've already mentioned quite a few things here that weren't present in the game, but are in the movie. And like I said, some of these I don't think works. Like, for example, the father who hasn't seen his daughter for 7 years immediately starts shitting on her when he realizes that she's there and she didn't burn his papers. Like, he's not mad about her presence, per se, but he's like, well, at least you burned my papers before coming, right? You burned them before coming, right? And she's like, well, no, how the fuck do you think I got here? And he's like, you didn't burn my papers! Damn you, Laura! And it, like, immediately pushes her away when he was so happy to see her and he, like, loved his daughter so much. Immediately pushes her away. So she leaves. He doesn't even care. He lets her go, basically, after not seeing her for 7 years. So, like, there are definitely some things here that weren't present in the game, at least not that I remember. But there are some that are. Like the plane scene. Which I do think the plane scene is pretty close to how it was in the game, and it's still pretty hyped to see here, just like it was in 2013 in the game. There's also, like, the kill where she has on the guy, like, pushing him into, like, the puddle, where it's, like, a really grueling task to kill this one guy. It wasn't just, like, she popped him, instantly died, or, like, KO'd him with, like, a judo chop or something. It was, like, a really intense back-and-forth life-or-death fight that ultimately ended with her victorious and her taking someone's life, and she has to come to terms with that. Like, there are some really good moments here that are recognizable from the game, but when it does try to do its own thing, I do think it stumbles quite a bit. Anyway, though, I'll just go ahead and fast forward here a bit. Walt Goggins and Laura, they meet and they exchange some words back and forth. Eventually, they, per usual, the bad guy and Laura team up. So now they are teaming up going to Himiko's tomb. They are working together because if they don't, Walt Goggins is just going to kill her dad and she doesn't want that. So they're going to the tomb. They're going to Himiko's tomb. There's like some booby traps along the way. The booby traps are kind of cool. I always appreciate some good Indiana Jones level booby traps. I will say, some of them are really lackluster. So one dude steps on a booby-trapped tile where a spike impales him, and Richard farts out a super stinker of a line that I think makes no sense. He says, that wasn't designed to keep people out. It was designed to keep something in. Brother, how would you be able to deduce that? A spike just shot straight up through the floor from a single tile. It wasn't like an elaborate trap or anything. It feels like it was almost an accident that it was there. It feels like it was a miracle he stepped on that specific tile, actually. And why the fuck would that... How would one single spike be evidence that it was designed to keep something in? It would do a horrible job at keeping something in. Also a horrible job of keeping something out. It's just a bad trap. Like, you're just wrong. You're just straight up wrong. Now, the next series of traps is pretty good, though, with, like, the falling floor and stuff. Like, I appreciate the traps. Eventually, they get to Himiko's tomb, and they learn, when they open the tomb, that Himiko wasn't exactly the evil being that she was portrayed as in Legends. She wasn't even a paranormal being or anything that could kill people with a touch. She was a carrier of a disease. And they put her in this tomb to lock the disease in there with her. A very potent disease, which again, you don't want this evil organization to get their hands on. So they learn this, and then Walt Goggins takes a finger of hers so that way they can analyze and synthesize the disease to weaponize it, because it turns out she wasn't magic, and they need to make sure that this disease doesn't get out. But the disease, what it does is it, like, melts people's flesh and turns them into zombies. It makes zombies. like, you know, and you get a little zombie fight. Unfortunately, Richard Croft, he catches a bad deal, and he gets injured, and Walt Goggins is running away. There's an emotional reunion between Richard and Laura. They share some final goodbyes, and it's very, very profound stuff. And then Richard blows himself up, destroying Himiko's body and the disease there, sealing it all in the cave. And Laura and Walt fight each other. And Laura wins. That's how it wraps up. But there is sequel bait where it turns out the Guardian that saved her earlier when she got, like, arrested, she is working with that ancient order as well. She was actually, like, the leader of it, it seems. Don't know if we're ever going to see that sequel. It's been quite a while, but that was the film in a nutshell. Like I said, it wasn't a bad movie or anything. I actually did enjoy it, and it was nice to kind of get a refresher of the reboot game that I remembered enjoying. Like, it was cool to see it. I didn't hate it. It definitely had some things I didn't like about it, and I do think it's probably my least favorite. Well, no, not my least favorite. Cradle of Light, I think, is definitely worse. but I don't like it as much as the 2001 movie. I would say it's second place out of 3 here. Not bad. Didn't hate it. I actually really did enjoy watching all 3 of these movies again, though. Like, it was kind of fun to revisit these. They are fun action-adventure films. Anyway, the 4th film I watched is the Assassin's Creed movie. That one I don't think I'm going to yap about in this video. That one I might actually make a standalone for, because that movie's just fucking insultingly bad. I hated pretty much every moment of that one. In a franchise I already don't like, a movie somehow was even worse than I was expecting it to be. It was nuts. Anyway, that's about it for now. See ya.